What is up, everybody? This is Dayton, and we are the Baseline Show, guys. This would be the new podcast for my channel. I'm going to be doing this both on YouTube as a video, as you guys are seeing now, and I will also be doing it on SoundCloud as a audio file for the for a podcast. So let's go ahead into this, you guys. Welcome, guys. My name is Dayton Simpson. I'm by no means an NBA specialist, analyst, or anything. I am just an opinionated, educated fan. I thought maybe for my very first episode ever, I'd maybe like to just go over the Utah Jazz, give a nice little, maybe a 15-minute video breakdown for the Utah Jazz and where they're at and where they're going. So if everybody is ready, let's go ahead and start the podcast. All right, guys, my name is Dayton Simpson, and we're going to be covering the Utah Jazz. So let's just start with a recap, you guys. The Utah Jazz are currently sitting practically last in the Western Conference. I mean, you do got the Phoenix Suns behind them at 7-24, so rest in peace to Phoenix. I don't know what's going on over there, but Utah is right there on 14th. They're 14th in the Western Conference. They are 14-17, 3 games under 500, and the record is not looking too great at this moment. There are some reasons behind that. Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell has been either out for partially out for a game or out the entire game for 8 games this season, where the Jazz have only won once. So, I mean, if you took away just those 7 losses, they'd be 14-10. But, I mean, you can't do that. It's 14-17. That's the reality of it. The Jazz, on top of that, you guys, take in mind the Utah Jazz have played the toughest schedule in the NBA up to this point, and then also have the toughest December schedule. So don't be too alarmed if the Jazz are quite a few games under 500 by the end of December, going into the new year. Once we get through the midpoint of January, that's when our schedule really starts to mellow out, and we'll hopefully get our stuff together by then. Real quick, so in the Western Conference, I'm just going to go over this. So the Jazz are 14th at 14-17. Timberwolves are right above us at 14-16. Spurs are 16-15. Mavericks 15-14. Rockets have turned it around a little bit. They're 15-14 now, sitting up in like the 9th or 10th spot, whatever it is. They're tied. It looks like they're tied for 9th with Dallas at a 15-14 record. So, a lot of competition in the West. There is no bad teams in the West this year. For God's sake, the Kings are 16-14. But I look at teams like the Thunder, who are 19-10 right now, and I feel like if the Jazz had that same schedule, the same difficulty, the Jazz would probably have around that same record. So, I'm trying not to worry too much about it. However, there's definitely some things, the Jazz will either win by 30 or lose by 30, and that's not a very consistent. If you can win one game by 30 and lose the next by 30, that's just not a very good sign. The Jazz are currently sitting last in their division. I think the whole entire NBA as a whole, the Jazz are 23rd. The only teams being worse is Miami Heat, Wizards, Knicks, Cavs, Hawks, Bulls, and Suns. So unfortunately, I mean, we're not doing too well. I think speaking of the Jazz schedule, how I said we've had the hardest schedule yet. Take a look at our the rest of our December. We got the Warriors, Blazers, Thunder, Blazers, Sixers, the Knicks. Hopefully we can get that win. The Raptors, the Cavs. Hopefully we can get that. The Pistons. But I mean, this next 5 games of the Warriors, Blazers, Thunder, Blazers, Sixers is just going to be hell for us. So we need to try to see if we can come out on top of that road trip. If not, then that's going to be difficult. Jazz, I think just looking down at this Utah Jazz roster, there's just no offense there. I mean, I know everyone talks about the Jazz defense and how it's struggling, and I think a lot of that is attributed to the offense. To be completely honest, I think the Jazz are getting outran. We're taking shots really late in the shot clock. The other teams are grabbing the boards, and the Jazz just aren't doing a good job of getting back in transition. I think that's where we've kind of been slow. But in the end, there's no excuses. There's no excuses. The Jazz are not playing very well right now, despite the hardest schedule and the hardest December as well. So, I mean, forget about that, and let's just talk about the Jazz roster. Now, The reason I think the Jazz are failing is because they literally have zero offense. They have no offense whatsoever outside of Donovan Mitchell. I mean, if you really look down the stats here, and I don't even want to look down these stats, but let me just go ahead and name these players on this roster, and you'll notice that none of them are scorers. Some of them are shooters, I'll give that, but none of them are scorers. Donovan Mitchell is the guy, right? Donovan Mitchell's your guy. Rudy Gobert, he's having a decent season. He's getting 15 and 12, 2 blocks a game. He's doing a good job. 2 assists per game. He's having a good year statistically, but he's by no means a scorer by any means. Ricky Rubio, not a scorer. Jay Crowder, not a scorer. He has little spurts, little moments, but he's not a scorer. Joe Ingles, not a scorer. He's a shooter. He's a very underrated team player. He's really good in the pick and roll, really good player. But however, he's not a scorer. He can shoot, but he's not a scorer. Derek Favors, he's kind of held the team together. That little veteran presence, Derek Favors lately has kind of held the team together. But he's not a scorer. I mean, he can if you need it, but he's not really a scorer. Kyle Korver's not a scorer. Well, here's the thing: he's a shooter once again, and when you can shoot like Kyle Korver, you're just a scorer by default. I mean, that's just how it is. If you can shoot like Kyle Korver, so I guess he's kind of a scorer, but he's more of a shooter. Exum, nope. Neto, nope. Royce O'Neal, nope. Grayson Allen, he doesn't ever play. Georges Niang, nope. Thabo Sefolosha, nope. Literally, I didn't name one other scorer on this team. Everybody else is just a defensive-minded team player. So, I mean, when your offense can't score, in modern day NBA, it feels like the offense is becoming the main thing now. The defense is becoming, back in the day they said, you can't win a championship without defense. I just don't believe that to be true anymore. I mean, the offense, the whole game is offense now. The whole game is just offense. Led behind Donovan Mitchell, who's averaging 21, 3, and 2 steals a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. This roster, the Jazz did decide to make that move to trade Alec Burks for Kyle Korver. And that's been a pretty successful movement. I think both teams the Cavaliers got a couple second-round picks. Alec Burks may be good. I wish nothing but the best for Alec. Kyle Korver's coming in, improved the shooting. The only problem is him coming in that second unit has not been good for the Jazz. He hasn't, for some reason, I don't know what it is with Kyle, but like when he's in with the second unit, he's just not as good. When he's in with the starters, he's phenomenal. So I think Quinn's going to have to do a really good job at trying to get the rotation going and try to make it a good rotation, because that he needs to be in those starter minutes with the main starter guys. I remember the one game versus the Rockets, I think, the one that we won. Quinn did just this absolutely awesome rotation where he brought Kyle Korver in really quickly at like the 8-minute mark. Ingles went to the bench. They started Jay Crowder that game. So they started Ricky Rubio, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, Jay Crowder, and Rudy, right? And then the first sub was Kyle Korver came in for Joe Ingles, putting Korver in with the starters. And then Joe Ingles and D. Faves came in with the second unit. Joe Ingles led the second unit. D. Faves and Joe Ingles worked together like, I don't know, they're just a dynamic duo in the Jazz. They're probably the best dynamic duo working together. And they destroyed it. We ended up killing the Rockets that game. So I'm hoping Quinn kind of keeps trying to do a lineup like that, where Korver was awesome that game. He had with those starter minutes, and he was just really good. I hope we can find the rotation. Quinn, he's the guy, though. He's a scientist, man. He's going to find something to do to really help the Jazz. So, honestly, I'm very, very happy for the guy. And I'm hoping that Quinn can turn this around. I'm glad that we have Quinn as our coach, because if we didn't, then this might be even more of a bad story. The Jazz are shooting terribly. If you just look at it honestly, effective field goal percentage, Donovan's shooting 48%, Rudy 65%, Rubio 45%. I mean, and that's their effective field goal percentage. If you wanted their real field goal percentage, Donovan's shooting 42%, 39% for Rubio, 40% for Crowder, 44% for Ingles, 40% for Kyle Korver, 40% for Exum. Everyone's shooting under 500, it seems like. The only players on the Jazz shooting above 500 is Rudy and Favors for obvious reasons. And then Neto is shooting at 500. So, I mean, that's it. And Epe Udo, who doesn't ever play. He's shooting 84%. But anyway, yeah, I mean, these guys are just not, they're not making shots that they normally make. So I'm just hoping that this is one of those things that just kind of get turned around. I guess when you're kind of, the Jazz seem to always be in a hole that they got to climb out of, but that's just me. All right, let's go on to the next, you guys. Got the schedule out of the way, standings. All right, so do the Jazz need to make more moves to become a contender or become a playoff team? If that, I think so. I do agree that there has to be a little bit, and not as much as Jazz fans give the Jazz, but a little bit of slack with the schedule. You know, you got to give them a little bit of slack, but not as much as everybody else is trying to give them. They're trying to say, oh, no, you know, the Jazz have had the hardest schedule, that's why. But, I mean, in the reality, we're 3 games under 500. That's not acceptable. So, what the Jazz need to do, I think they do need to make a trade. Obviously, if you've heard the rumors this week, you would hear that the Jazz have some kind of interest in Jabari Parker. I don't know if that's completely true. I think Jabari's name kind of gets dragged into literally everything with the Utah whenever he's available, just because of his LDS ties, religious ties, you know, with Utah. So I feel like anytime that he comes available in the market, there's someone saying the Jazz want him. And, you know, it's always happened like that. I don't know if that's necessarily true. You know, the Jazz put out a report saying they've had no contact with Chicago's front office. However, would Jabari be a good fit? I don't know. As far as the team DNA goes, no, he wouldn't. But I think that's kind of the problem, is the Jazz DNA is what's not working anymore. The Jazz DNA, you know, their defense first isn't really working, so now they need offense because they can't score. Donovan Mitchell is the only guy, you guys, that can score. And so having a guy like Jabari who can stretch the floor, have a 4, you know, the Jazz I've always thought the Jazz have needed a stretch 4 for about 3 years now. We've been really in need of a stretch 4. I think Joe Johnson filled that pretty well. And Jay Crowder's doing a good job when he does it. He's not shooting the best threes right now, but he's not necessarily a scorer. You know, he's a really good player. He's a tough guy, gritty guy, but he's not a Jabari in the sense that he can score. So I think the Jazz would really benefit offensively, and I think the team as a whole would benefit from having Jabari. It's just, does he fit the system? No. So it's kind of an interesting thought there. And then another thought you have to think about is if the Jazz are interested in Jabari, well, what would we have to give up to get him? And the only player I can even think of that salaries match up and would make any sense is Derek Favors. But I think Derek Favors has been decent this year, and I don't think Chicago would want Derek Favors. I think the reason they're getting rid of Jabari is because of Lauri Markkanen coming back into the lineup. So that's kind of one of those things is, you know, he's back in the lineup. So what do you do now? Is they don't want to sit Jabari and make him ride the bench. So I think they're kind of doing it for Jabari. I don't know if Jabari wants out or anything, but I think they're kind of doing it for him. And they're trying to see what they can get out of it because Jabari still has some value in the market. But I don't think the Bulls would want Derek Favors. So unless the Jazz could whoop up some weird combo of contracts that could pull that trade off for Jabari without trading Favors, I don't know. I just don't feel like it's just not going to happen. And if it did, it wouldn't happen until later down the road. But as far as the Jabari goes, I don't think that's going to happen. What other options do I think the Jazz could pursue? I don't know if there's any options that they can pursue, honestly, that are good, liable options for the regular season. I think they might, you know, we might have to wait till the free agency to go pick somebody up. But there's players like Tobias Harris I think would be awesome here. There's reports saying he kind of wants to stay with the Clippers, but who knows? He just wants money. Klay Thompson even. I mean, Klay is one of those guys like where you're like, odds are not good, but I don't see why the Jazz don't give him a phone call. Chris Middleton, Aaron Gordon. You know, there's players out there. And Jabari might be that fifth guy, you know, that 5th or 6th guy that we call if needed, if we can't land anything else. I do feel like the Jazz need to make another move, but knowing Dennis Lindsey, I think he's just going to sit this one, wait till the easy schedule goes, and then if we're still down like this by February, by the trade deadline, I really do think he'll make some moves. I think he made that clear when he traded for Kyle Korver so early in the season. And who knows, we may trade Kyle Korver again because he will be tradable by the deadline. So who knows? But, yeah, the Jazz are in a very, very weird spot. So I just thought I'd do a little recap of their season to kind of talk to you guys about it. And and try this little podcast thing out. If you guys like this podcast, you guys let me know down in the comments section. Leave a heart, like this video, like this podcast, and let me know what you guys think. I'll be doing this all the time. I'm a big NBA guy. If you're watching the video version, you can see I'm wearing my Jazz shirt and my Jazz hat. I'm a huge Jazz fan. So I have a lot of opinions. I'm a little biased a little bit, but other than that, you guys, let's just end this with some Jazz stats for 12/19/18, you guys. This is December, what the hell? December 19th, 2018. So as of today, Utah Jazz team stats, and we'll see where these stand by the end of the season. So let me go ahead and check out these stats. All right, guys. So Donovan Mitchell leading the team with 21 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. Rudy is our second leading scorer, and that has something to say. But Rudy is 14. He's averaging 15, 12, and 2 blocks and 2 assists. Ricky is averaging 13, 4, and 6 assists. So Ricky's not doing too bad statistically. Jay Crowder, 12, 5, and 2. Ingles is 12, 4, and 5. Favors 11, 4, 7. So you can see, their stat is, or their saying is, the strength of the team is the team, and that's obviously true considering the Jazz have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players averaging over 11, and then you got Kyle Korver, who's averaging 7.7, Exum 6.6. So you got the strength of the team is indeed the team for the Jazz, and that's what's hurting them, honestly. It's because if the team don't play, if you have one of those guys have a bad night, the Jazz are in a bad spot. But anyway, guys, that'll be it for this podcast / video. Hope you guys like this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Other than that, you guys, hopefully the Utah Jazz. Don't be surprised, though, if we are, a few games under 500, but I think by the end of the season, will the Jazz make the playoffs? Yes, I still think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be as high as 2 through 4 like we thought they would be. However, I think I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they'll make the playoffs maybe in the 6th seed, 7th seed, 8th seed, somewhere around there. But I think they'll do it. I think they'll turn it around. We'll have to see if the Jazz make any more deals. Obviously, that's pending on injuries, trades, and all that kind of stuff. But that'll be it for the Utah Jazz recap, you guys, in my opinion. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. This is Dayton signing out.